Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Voices Deep and Otherwise, written by MarlynnOfMany. I was thinking how nice it was that the spaceship and elevator buttons made for human hands when the deepest voice ever spoke behind me. Please press the button for upwards. I jumped unprofessionally, whirling around. He'd finished the sentence. A looming bulk in a spacesuit stared down at me while I got my heart rate under control. Sure thing, I said, pressing the button. Sorry you startled me. Has anyone told you you have an impressively quiet for such a big fellow? The brown eyes visible through the visor crinkled in what might have been a smile. It has been mentioned, he said. If I remember correctly, this was one of the new species that everyone was calling Smashers. I didn't know if that was a direct translation of their own names for themselves or just a description of something they liked to do. This one was built like a bear with a stubby dinosaur tail, so I could easily picture him smashing. And, as I recalled, he was a he. The males were said to have that yellow/orange color above their face, so handy for their species to be color-coded this way. Going all the way up to the top, I asked while waiting. Yes, he said. I'm going to go meet. The floor slipped out from under me, and I nearly bashed my face into the elevator door as alarms began to whoop. A loud thud told me that a big guy hadn't been so lucky, but at least he was wearing a helmet. Very lucky, I realized, since he just cracked a sculpture with his face. Are you okay? I shouted over the alarms. He was already getting up. Yes. What has happened? I think we hit something. That's the sign to evacuate. Come on, the escape pods are right down here. He didn't object when I grasped his arm to help guide him into the right direction. He was a little unsteady on his feet, and the floor kept vibrating like we were flying through a field of debris too large for a shield. I hoped the escape pods were up to it. Dang, I hope there's enough pods, I thought as I entered the room to see crowds funneling into every available exit. I spotted one on the end and pulled him towards it. Nobody claimed it before we got there. Get in, clear the door, shut the door, sit down, hit the thrusters. We blasted away under automated controls. Pray to all the gods of space travel that we make it. I looked to my companion, who was holding a hand against his helmet. Pray real hard. Are you okay? I asked. I think, he said, in the highest, squeakiest voice ever. My suit is leaking. What? I laughed, unprofessional again. I cleared my throat. This wasn't funny. Is it damaged when you hit it? The chipmunk voice replied, It must be, and I had to bite my lip. Let me see, I said, moving closer. Maybe we can fix it. He lowered his hand to show a deep dent right at the seam of the visor, with worried eyes behind it. I opened my mouth to describe the leak, but my voice came out as shockingly deep. Yeah, it's dented. What? We realized the difference at the same time. My air, he squeaked. What do you breathe? I coughed. Sulfur hex or whatever. My voice returned to normal when I stood back and took a deep breath, but he didn't. The urgent conversation that came next led to a tableau that lasted until our rescue. Him lying on the floor in a puddle of dense gases, and me standing on a seat with my face as close to the top of the escape pod as possible. When it became reasonably clear that neither of us was about to suffocate in each other's air, we turned to small talk and sea shanties to pass the time. He was a great singer with a subterranean bass, and he picked things up quickly. By the time our rescuers opened the door, we were deep in a rousing chorus of what do we do with a stubby Roomba? On the way to the medical ward, we exchanged contact info and promised to stay in touch. This had the makings of a great band. End of story. Story number 2. Perfection, written by Coyote Havoc. The humans will explore anything. The Taxili survey fleet hung in high orbit of the planet in abject fear. Being on the mutual border with human space was enough to invoke a sense of trepidation. But for once, that was not the case. Nothing on the planet would suggest any sense of danger to the untrained eye. It looked perfect for immediate inhabitation. That's what kept the Taxili at a very safe distance. The perfection. Everything was absolutely perfect, down to the cycle of cesium-133. One rotation was exactly 24 hours, and one cycle was exactly 234 rotations. As if that wasn't strange enough, the distribution of water to land was exactly 50-50. But if it went further, deep oceans to shallow water, to lowlands to mountains were exactly 25% of each. The polar regions were exactly equal to the tropical regions, as were the subarctic, temperate, and subtropical, a perfect 20%. Furthermore, the biomes were all balanced as well. Deserts occupied the exact same area of surface as rainforest, woodland, grasslands, coastal, and so on. Everything was perfectly proportional, and though distributed at random, no biome had even a 1/10,000% more or less than any other. Scientifically, this planet was impossible. Even the background radiation was a perfect wavelength of 30 meters. Humanity responded immediately to the conundrum. In less than one rotation of the planet below, a Ransur Mark III heavy cruiser jumped into system. "Explain your intentions," barked the middle-aged human. The insignia on the lapel indicated a rank of lieutenant commander.
"We were on a routine survey. Much of our border space is still unknown," the Tixley Arbiter explained. "As we entered the system, our instruments detected a habitable world. It wasn't until we checked the second time that we realized the system was in a border. We did not intend to violate your sovereign territory." Nodding, the human examined the survey fleet on the sensors. "No heavy weapons, no colonization ship. Accidents happen, my friend. So, you have found this odd planet and decided to give us a call." "Exactly, Commander. It's perfect in every way, scientifically impossible."
"You wanted us to explore it, didn't you?" the commander shot back. Sheepishly, the Taxidi replied,
"Well, we were hoping that you would. Humans explore everything, and we thought—"
"You assumed that we would do your work for you," the human commander finished. "Give me a moment to clear it with Captain." The Tixley Arbiter tried to hide its excitement when the channel was once again opened, only to see the grim face of the human commander facing him once again. "The captain sends his greetings, but is in contact with Terran Command," he explained. "However, the information I am about to relay to you is given in the utmost faith and trust to further our peaceful relations with the Taxili." The Arbiter paled slightly. They were not going to explore this world for them, and already knew of its existence, but had never colonized it.
What could be keeping the humans at bay, he wondered.
"The planet is known as Equinox. Everything on the planet is balanced perfectly, done so by colonists." Shock rippled through the Arbiter's mind.
"We detected no colonization."
"There are none left to find," he continued the human. "They wiped themselves out."
"Impossible," exclaimed the Arbiter. "The planet is perfect in every way. How?"
"You detected the background radiation, right?" the human interrupted. "It's a radio frequency. Tune your comms to receive it." The Arbiter didn't have time to relay the command until the communications officer on board his ship did just that. "This is the last voice of Equinox Colony signing off," came a disembodied voice. "Give it a few more seconds, it repeats," said the human commander. "This is a general warning from the planet Equinox. Do not attempt to land on the surface. This message is being broadcasted as a warning and a safeguard by the last of the Equinox Colony. We succeeded in creating paradise, and we are transmitting the repeating communication to warn others not to share in our fate." A short pause, the communication was detected.
"What could they possibly have done wrong?" thought the Arbiter.
"We set out to create a utopia, and we did succeed. What we did not plan for was our own inclusion. The planet you see is perfect in every way, down to the atom. Our terraforming effort was exact to the microbe and grain of sand. We believed that we had created a perfect planet for human existence, and if it wasn't for our own imperfections, we would have. It started with a lack of desire to work. We dismissed this as resting on our laurels until the colonists no longer desired to eat either. It escalated into a desire to do nothing at all, and as I continue, I must take stimulants to keep from falling asleep, like the rest of the colony." Another pause. "We have been visited by 3 other species whom all had the same effect and left immediately. Several hundred colonists were also able to escape as well. But having no more transports available and being short on stimulants, most of the colony has already succumbed to permanent sleeping state. Another pause followed by a yawn and a sharp intake of breath. We examine all possibilities of pathogen, radiation, bacterial agents, and have concluded that it's the perfect state of the planet itself. In perfection we forgot who we were. Humans and most other species need something to challenge themselves in order to maintain functionality. On this utopia, there are no challenges, no adventures. It is a state of perpetual bliss. Having nothing to challenge ourselves except for the routine, we attempted to entertainment, and that conversely led to the death sleep that awaited us. In this constant state of perfection, nothing could stimulate the population except the stems that I now use to broadcast the signal. Another pause, a yawn, and deep breath. That was the last of the stems I just took. Again, this is a general warning to keep a safe distance from planet Equinox. This is the last voice of Equinox Colony. Signing off. The transmission was shut off before it could continue again. The Taxili Arbiter looked into the grim eyes of the human commander on the comm. They died of boredom. That's one way to look at it, replied the commander. Another way is to look at it as is, and they created a perfect environment that humanity was never meant to experience. Now you know. Accepting the incomprehensible explanation as gospel, the Taxili Arbiter nodded and said, Thank you, Commander. We will add a warning with this planet's location to avoid at all costs. The Taxili communication ended, and their vessel turned and engaged their engines to leave. Do you think they boarded? The captain asked from where he had been coaching the commander from the view. Pretty sure, sir, the commander replied. I will contact command and let them know. The human vessel stayed in orbit one more rotation to ensure the Taxili didn't return, then itself began to leave. Humanity's secret was safe. Not that the world was actually ever colonized, but that it was so perfect that humanity was also terrified to set foot on it. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 peeps, Dragon Soup, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Sans the Skeleton, Lightjock, Dragzoon WRE, and Lord Azrakal. Thank you very much.